Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Welcome back to Homeschool Together. Today we're going to be talking about part 6 of our curriculum series and the All About Reading curriculum, the reading curriculum that we've discussed actually in the past few episodes. We've mentioned it as a supplementary curriculum that we've been doing on top of our pre-K curriculum. So today we're going to be talking about that. But before we begin, we want to make sure that everybody is joining us on Facebook, our Facebook group, Homeschool Together Podcast, and also following us on Instagram at Homeschool Together Podcast. And if you could, by chance, leave us a review, that'd be wonderful. So today we're going to talk about the supplementary curriculum called All About Reading. And this is something we've been doing, for almost about 3 months now. Basically from the beginning of the corona pandemic, we've actually been doing this. Mm-hmm. So I've had a lot of experience with this. This is something I've been implementing on my side. It does not require as much planning. So in the past, Ariel's talked a lot about the planning that she does using Trello and a lot of the deep knowledge of the prior curriculums. This is actually something, we decided to purchase it over, I think Logic of English was the other one that we looked at.
Yeah, that was another option. That's the one that's recommended by Torchlight. We had done a little bit of the Logic of English letter sounds in Torchlight Pre-K, and our daughter did not connect at all with the multimedia, which is a bigger part of that. Additionally, they have handwriting, either cursive or manuscript, and we're actually going to be doing Danelian handwriting, which is, if our listeners want to look it up, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a manuscript with some extra flair so that you could
it's
just
like a print cursive almost.
So it's like a prettier manuscript, and you're just one step away from adding connections, and then it would be cursive. We just wanted something a little prettier for the handwriting. So anyway,
and we're not really a cursive family. I tend to print a lot, and I think you print as well. So
we just wanted something that if they wanted to, their grandmother writes in cursive pretty exclusively, and she has beautiful handwriting, and our older daughters commented on that. So if they wanted to, we use Danelian, then it would be easier for them to pick up cursive if they want to. Anyway, all this is to say that there would have been a part of the Logic of English curriculum that we wouldn't have used. So we looked into this as an alternative, and it had great reviews. And the other piece of this, the other reason we went with this above Logic of English, is that it does actually have physical letter tile manipulatives. And because our daughter is more of a kinesthetic learner, we felt that would work out better for her.
And before we kind of dive into this, there may be some negativity you may hear in the way I'm talking about the curriculum or talking about reading, but I do want to make sure that a lot of the challenges that I've had with reading have been because I've been trying to adapt a curriculum or learning to the style of my learner. And so the biggest challenge that I've had is not necessarily with the curriculum per se. It is more we're trying to find that middle ground where I can teach her how to read without losing control of the situation or having her lose interest in reading. One of the most important things is she is so into books. It's unbelievable how into books she is, and she just wants to read so bad, and we can see it, and she tells us all the time she wants to read. And so for us, obviously above all the other curriculums, going forward in life, until she's 100 years old and has 5 million great grandkids, learning to read is the most important thing that anybody can do at any time in their life. So more than any curriculum that you can choose out there, learning to read is probably not only the biggest hurdle. Personally, for me, it's been actually very surprising. You take it for granted how easy it is to read, how easy it is to do math, but these are very deeply complex skills to learn. It's probably the most difficult thing that she'll learn. And it's the most important thing that she'll learn because it just opens up every door for her on the planet. She can read anything. Once you can learn to read, you can learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, this is kind of a cornerstone thing. This has been kind of a personal goal for both her and I this year, is to learn to read. She expressed that she wanted to do that. And for me, I run into a lot of challenges with it, and they have been mainly around her learning style, which has been the biggest challenge that I've had to learn and actually had to overcome as the teacher. And, we've always said that this podcast is not going to be all roses and sunshine. We're going to lay our faults, in front of you and tell you what we've done wrong, so that if you encounter the same thing, then maybe you'll be able to approach it in a different way. And I'm not going to lie and say I have failed twice very hard trying to teach her how to read. First time was about a year ago. Maybe
yeah,
maybe.
That was difficult. We got caught up in the keeping up with the Joneses. Not that we realized it, but she had a best friend that she'd grown up with since she was
A little kid.
what she was like 3 months old. The girls have been together. They're only 5 weeks apart in age. And this other little girl was basically like sitting down. Yeah. She had a reading program and she started to learn to read and she loved it. But she's a very happy workbook child. She's really good with that. And we were like, yes, we're going to teach our daughter to read too, because she also loves books and she'll do great at this. And it was like an abject failure.
It was because I think at that time I didn't have a very good understanding of learner styles.
She also wasn't ready.
And she wasn't ready. And, there's a lot of homeschooling families out there who will say, well, your reader wasn't ready and you went in the wrong direction. And maybe I'll try to talk a little bit about that today, and how I've found ways to overcome that challenge. Some people would say, well, just hold back and maybe wait a year. And we kind of did.
We did, basically.
Pulled back. And I did some research and I found this famous book called Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Lessons. Great clickbaity title there, but it's got, I think, 5,000 5-star reviews on Amazon. It's an unbelievably popular book. And I said, hey, let's get let's go into that. And it did not go well, just to be honest.
It did not go
well. And, with failures at this age, it's very rare. It's almost, let's be honest, it's not the child's fault at this age when something doesn't go right. It's more often your fault. And I had to kind of come to grips with that I failed as a teacher, and that's okay, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to come back. We're going to learn from our mistakes and do it again. So, we gave it a year, almost a year. And then we went ahead and started the All About Reading. And we'll go into a little bit more depth about the program. But again, I started the program and I kind of lapsed back into that same type of mentality of, okay, we got to do the lesson. It's going to take 20 to 30 minutes. And she just wasn't connecting with that. And it felt like I was, walking through the mud and I couldn't get through anything. And she was shutting down and we were kind of fighting a little bit. And it wasn't fun for her. It wasn't fun for me. And I kind of had to step back and go, oh my gosh, I'm doing this again. I'm making this mistake. But this time I knew the mistake because I had seen it before. And I said, okay, well, how can I, knowing what I know now, that she's more of a kinesthetic learner and she needs to be very much entertained when she's learning something that's challenging. And she also runs into this problem where I was joking with Ariel earlier that she's kind of like a ship and she lists in one direction and she lists in the other direction. Those two directions are, I'm extremely bored and I'm going to shut down, or this is way too hard and I'm shutting down. And a lot of times I have to feel like I'm keeping the ship afloat when I get into something that is fundamentally new like this, like a reading or a math. And I've really had to learn the techniques on how to manage her emotions and keeping it right in her wheelhouse so that we can go and sail out. And I said it, I felt like I was a ship going through the Panama Canal and that I have an inch of clearance on both sides. And if I touch each side, it's over. That's sometimes how it feels. But, I'll go into a little bit later how I have overcome a lot of these problems and have really taken this curriculum and kind of, bent it and twisted it and molded it to what I feel is working really, really well right now. And like, just use today as an example, literally today. She ran downstairs. She was reading a word. She wanted to show it to you. She was over the moon.
Yeah,
she was
she
so
bursted
excited.
right in on my morning meeting with
I'm
my
sorry
team,
about
and
that. I did not
but she
know
was
that.
super excited about the word. I think this is what you're talking about, this listening.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly one of the topics that Julie Bogart covers in The Brave Learner. If you haven't gotten that book, get that book. It's great. But she talks about this balance between challenging your learner and letting them enjoy mastery. So it's really difficult for her because if she's not challenged enough, she gets really bored. But if she's too challenged, then she shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Finding that middle balance is important. And I guess why I'm bringing it up is it's not just going to be in this. It's going to be in anything that challenges her. We found the same thing with her dance.
And I've seen similar problems with the math as well. She's way more interested in the math. It's a little bit easier for her, and maybe she gets that from my side. Is that math and science was always very easy for me. Reading and writing was not always my strong point, so I kind of empathize with her in that respect. But I've had to even pull in a lot of these techniques and a lot of these methodologies into the math curriculum as well, where I have found I'm able to I don't want to use the word pull her through, but help guide her through these lessons in a fun, entertaining, and compelling way where she is retaining what she's learning and being able to move forward and develop these new skills. So let's get into it a little bit. So the approach of All About Reading is very simple. It's a mastery curriculum. So very simply, you have to master what you've got before you can move on. And this is where that initial frustration can come in when you hit that first lesson and all of a sudden it slows way down. And, I was telling Ariel the other day, we've heard sometimes some people say, well, you can learn all the math you ever need to know in about 12 weeks, but that's at 100% retention.
Right.
And we always think back, like, how did we learn how to read and write math? And it took 12 years. Well, whenever you're learning something, you're only going to retain a certain portion of it, right? And then you got to come back and learn it again or in a different way. Reading is just like this, right? Where you got to come at it multiple times in different avenues, in different ways before you actually begin to master something. And then that allows you to move on. Whenever you're going through like a mastery program, like All About Reading, it's very, very important that you're mastering each and every step along the way, whether it's, learning this letter or knowing how to read these sets of letters or knowing these techniques of how to sounding out words. You got to know these skills to move forward. Otherwise, your learner is going to be behind. And so this is a mastery program that does incorporate a lot of hands-on tools. These little letter tiles with magnets on the back, we put it on our whiteboard so you can move them around and respell words and really get your hands into it. And I found that to be very helpful.
Alternately, there is an app that you could use with these. So if your learner is going to respond better to moving tiles around on the app to make words and things, that's also included when you purchase the program.
Yeah. So the structure of the program is that there's a main manual, and then there's also a student workbook, kind of like an activities book. You're also getting cards, and there's like there's a book that has a bunch of short stories in it so that as you learn these new words or as you learn your new letters, you can now begin to read new stories. And a lot of people, if you've had experience with Bob books, you'll know kind of what we're talking about, these simple one-word sentences or two-word sentences.
I mean, let's be honest, they're lame. The All About Reading ones they're not great. The Bob books,
books aren't even that great.
Mac sat on Sam. Sat. I mean,
yeah,
once
she's
reading
asked
earlier,
me a couple times, why is Sam sitting on Matt?
Right. Dot had a dog.
Yeah.
The dog had a rag hat. Mac sat on the rag. They're honestly abysmal.
Yeah.
But they only know a few letters, so I think they've done their best with them.
They've done their best.
But they're gonna be lame. And our daughter is used to. We read to her a ton.
A lot of books.
And we read a lot of really interesting books to her. And I think for her, she's like,
ugh,
these are lame. So one of the things we did do is we ordered the Usborne First Reader Library, which has a side of the page that the adult will read, and then the kid reads the other side of the page that has all the simple words, so that at least the whole story would be a little bit more interesting. When we get that, we'll definitely give a review of it on the show because I'm pretty excited. It's being shipped from the UK, so it's not going to be here for a few weeks. But I mean, in general, for all these programs, whatever books you get, I mean, they're lame. Let's just be honest. They're lame.
It is hard to motivate the kid. I mean, how many times can you read about I think he's a weasel or an otter.
No, he's a ferret.
He's a ferret.
Tap.
Named Bam.
bam, tap, bam,
Tap,
tap.
tap. Yes, oh my
That was the
gosh.
whole thing.
It's mind melting, but
And she knows it too.
and she does, and she's memorized it. So
Once she gets like a little bit further,
Yeah.
it'll be easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now she's not too many lessons in, and that's part of it.
So what does a lesson look like? So, the first initial lessons are very simple. They introduce the letters of the week. Very often it's about 3 to 4 letters. They come with these really nice perforated cards that you print off. We keep them in kind of a index card box, and they also include about 6 to maybe a dozen words that are spelled from those letters. They introduce one vowel. The first few lessons are just all around the letter A and all the various letters, the words that you can spell with the letter A.
And we should preface that we're doing all about reading level 1, which assumes that there is a pre-reading level. So it goes from pre-reading to level 4. We're in level 1. Pre-reading is just that you know your letters.
And there's a few other little things. And our daughter...
Like that you know that words rhyme, and there's a couple of things.
Yeah, and our daughter tested through that. So she was ready.
Right.
And I had already tried. She had already had some, experience with the phonetics when I started that year ago. So she was already aware that letters have sounds and all that type of stuff. So she was, she was a good point. It was a good point to start. So basically introduce a letter. They help you learn the sound. The learner has to, as they go through, they have to review those sounds. They have to master those sounds to be able to see them as you go through. They also do primitive word spelling, some very simple sounding out, kind of moving through the letters. There tends to be an activity and maybe a short story. They also focus on reading comprehension. They'll either give you the passage or you can read something to your learner, and then you ask them, what did I read? What was the content of what I was reading? So they want to kind of bring out that active literacy is kind of what they're asking for there. So I would say to do a full lesson from start to finish, if you had a robotic child who could handle it, it might take you about an hour to run through the whole thing, study every word, do every action. For my learner, again, this was the second time I failed in reading, as I realized that she just cannot give me 20 minutes. She can't give me 15 minutes. So to do a lesson would take about a week, even if I broke it up into about a 15-minute chunk, and then we would have to do this drilling aspect. And she really just does not resonate with, okay, here's a word, sound it out. Here's another word, sound it out. Here's another word, sound it out. And then just keep repeating that over and over again. Or even just playing with the tiles and spelling words. Okay, what word is this? Move letters. Now what is this word? That type of thing. It just didn't resonate very well with her. And I don't think this is a criticism of the curriculum. I think this is more in line with her style.
And her age. She's almost 5 now. And so this entire thing is a balance between the curriculum and the fact that our daughter is desperate to read. So we're trying, Matthew's desperately, and I think doing a really good job, despite kind of some of the stuff we've talked about, some of the negative things and challenges you've had. You're doing a really good job trying to help her reach her goal. She is desperate to read these books, and she's been really proud to, every time we read a book, she will sound out anything that she thinks she can, and she's really proud about that. So you're coming up against some of these walls, but you're really helping her reach her goal, and it's making her happy that she's achieving new levels. And
there are some opinions out there that would say, maybe you should hold off a little bit longer, but she keeps coming back to me wanting this. And so
it's a challenge.
And so this is the challenge. This is a challenge that any of us as learners, as homeschooling parents, we're going to run into these problems, whether it's, reading now, or if it's, learning to spell words, or maybe even some history thing, or, enjoying some other, nature-based thing, or getting outside, or who knows what it is. You're always going to run into challenges. So you can either stop, pause, wait for the learner to be ready for this, or you can maybe see if you can meander your way through and find a path, through the swamp, right?
That works for them.
And so I just wanted to go into a little bit of the changes that after I failed the second time, I stopped. I took a little bit of a break. I let her kind of just relax. I continued with our regular curriculum. And then I came back to this, and I said, I'm going to approach this as fun, as entertaining, and as pleasing to her learning style as I possibly can. And this required me to go out, and I told Ariel, I'm using the curriculum and I'm using the lessons as kind of a skeleton, and I'm not deviating. I'm doing everything that's in the lesson, but I'm packing on 60% more, because my learner likes it when I come at it these problems from multiple different ways. And I kind of had the analogy of like kind of a prize fighter where I'm softening up my opponent to, eventually break through whatever sticking point I have. And for me, the big sticking point right now is the sounding of the words, the blending of sounds. It's something that's a big challenge for her. And then keeping her focused all the way through the word, getting to that last, these are 3-letter words.
Right. She's really good on those first two.
First two, she's really good on.
Yeah.
Just getting her to the end. And it's been a sticking point for a while. So I've had to come at it from multiple different ways. So the first thing that I did is that I realized that the lessons are very big. And you'll notice this when you get the book or if you get into this curriculum, that the lessons are long, not, terribly long, but you will want to break these up into pieces naturally. Whether you're doing one lesson a week or one lesson every few days, you cannot do an entire lesson in one day and have a learner at like 4, 5, 6 years old. It's just a lot. It's a lot to ask of them to sit there for that long to do that.
And they don't recommend that you do that either.
Yeah, I think they recommend breaking up. And
Yeah.
they do have it in subsections, so there are nice breakpoints for you to be able to do. But you obviously have to balance what you may have a learner that likes to sit and do book work, and that's great.
Right.
We just don't have that. And so I've had to go and modify the schedule. So the first thing that I did is I said, okay, I'm going to break this up, but I'm going to break it up even more than what they suggest us to do. And I really kind of developed this idea of micro lessons. These are small, short lessons, 5, 10 minutes long, that I can sprinkle in through our normal homeschool day, whether it's at the beginning or at the end. So a lot of times I start doing these more intensive learning sessions with her when I've put the little one down for her morning nap. I will come back to my older learner and I will say, okay, let's do a quick reading lesson, 5 minutes. And this could be very simple as let's review the cards and let's try one word. Boom, done. Now let's go do something else. And then I'll come back 30, 40, 50 minutes later and say, let's do another quick lesson. And so in that long period of time, I've gotten 2 little micro lessons and I've covered a segment or a section, or I've been able to review the words, or I've been able to attack a very narrow problem that she has, whether it's say sounding words out or blending this word or learning the difference between B and D, being able to hit those learning elements. I found that breaking things into micro lessons really, really helped. And this may be useful to other aspects. And I've begun to do this in the math lesson as well, where I found that she could handle a long math lesson where I could break the math lesson into 2 pieces and be able to complete the math lesson. And stay tuned to the next episode where we talk about our, Right Start Math that we've been doing, and I'll be able to review that as well and talk a lot about what we're doing. But I've been able to do this there as well, where I do these micro lessons, and it's been really, really positive. Where I'm able to take her momentum, or I'm able to say, we're going to read this book next, and then we'll do a reading lesson once the reading lesson is done, and I can get her through it. Also, being able to kind of set how much work she's going to be doing. Like, hey, we're going to do these 2 words. That's it. Let's get through it. I know you can do it. Be really positive. And boom, I get through it. Great. Because I got to learn 12 words. If I can do 2 words at a time over the span of like, say, 2 weeks, and I've actually extended the lessons out from 1 week to 2 weeks to give myself even more time. So I've got 10 days and I do about 1 to 2 micro lessons a day. And across that time period, I'm able to get her excited about reading where I don't lose her interest. I'm able to marshal her forward to learn the things that she wants to learn. This has been a great win for me where I've been able to get through a lot of the challenges, like a lot of the back and forth, the emotional, the losing her interest problems. I've been able to overcome that. Another thing that I've been able to do is, incorporating that kind of Socratic method into the reading, where I've been doing a lot of quizzing. I also do a lot of teacher-student flipping, where all of a sudden I tell her, okay, for the next 5 minutes, you're the teacher. And I want you to teach me this word. And she gets so excited, like her eyes like go wide. I'm talking about anime, manga wide. And she is so excited to be able to teach me how to read. And I do this when I know I'm hitting a topic where she's kind of bored, but she's not showing me that she knows it. And it gets her excited about teaching me this topic. And that's been very positive. Also, being able to do in that teacher-student swap, a lot of times I pretend to be the student that's making errors, and she gets the opportunity to correct my errors. And that has been a great way for her to kind of reinforce the learning through being the teacher. And
It's
we know
also
this,
balancing for her, right? Because
yeah,
when she reads something and it's incorrect, you're trying to be positive about it. Oh, honey, that was really close. Let's just look at this last letter. And she really shuts down on the fact that she didn't get it right on the first try. So
Yeah,
you're modeling this behavior to her as well, that, oh, I didn't get it right. And then she goes, and she even says this, she goes, it's okay. I've done this with her too. Oh, it's okay. It's okay, mommy. You don't have to get it right in the first try. Let me help you. And so she's kind of parroting that back, and you're modeling being, not upset about it. And,
yeah, I'm a little upset. I play being upset about not knowing it, and then she helps coach me to be more positive, and then I get positive, and then I make the mistake, and then I look at her, and then now I'm modeling good behavior, and I want to do this again. I want to learn this. I don't want to stop. I want to do this, where I'm modeling this behavior, trying to teach her that, don't get down, get positive, power through it. You're smart enough to know how to do this. You can do it. Let's do it. And just modeling that behavior. These are kind of the things that I've had to do to kind of keep her interest in these little micro lessons to power her through. Also, another thing that I've been doing is a lot of kinesthetic movement. So I'll print words out and I will do hunt and finds, whether it's, go and hunt around the room, look for this word. And I'll be saying the word like jam. I need jam. And there's like 3 or 4 words out there. And she's got to look at it and go, okay, which one starts with ja? And then she's got to go find it. Maybe I'll have jar and jam, and she'll bring me a word and say, that's not the word. And she'll put it back, and I go, what's wrong? I go, jam. And she'll go, oh, it's not it's and then she'll go and find the right word. A lot of hunt and finds there. And I also do a lot of hunt and find letters. So whenever she's learning a new set of letters, I do a hunt and find letters as well. Open up the book, find me the first, G, or find me the first H, or something of that nature.
But you're doing it by letter sounds.
Exactly. I'm doing it by letter sounds. It's all very phonetic-based learning. Also, I'm layering in a lot of other books. So, for example, Dr. Seuss ABC, great book to learn. I ask her to, whenever I get to a letter and I point to it, she has to then say the sound that it starts with before I continue to read. So it's just like, those Dr. Seuss pages are very short. It's just one page. It's like 4 or 5 words that rhyme, or 4 or 5 words that start with that letter. She'll tell me the letter and then I'll read the word, that type of thing. I also do this with the Alpha Tales.
Yeah, Alpha Tales from Scholastic is a really great book.
Yeah, and most notably at the end of the Alpha Tales, they tend to do this kind of almost like a poem where it's kind of this alliterative poem of a bunch of words that were from the story that are now in this poem. And I always do a point, and she has to tell me the sound before I continue. So she's getting that kind of repetition and she sees it. Sometimes I'll point to the wrong letter and then she's got to catch that I did the wrong letter, that type of thing. So I always keep her honest so she doesn't get into that repetition. Oh, I know what Dad wants me to say. She has to pay attention. So kind of drive home that paying attention thing.
Another thing I've been doing too is when we're doing read alouds together, if there's a word that she can sound out that's short, I'll point that out to her and go, oh, can you sound this one out for mommy? And she's so excited to be participating in the story. It could be anything. We were reading a National Geographic book earlier about Greek gods and goddesses. And I saw the word God and I said, oh, you can sound this out. And she did. And she was just so excited to participate. So it's another way to reinforce her skills without it being just quite so boring as the Bob books or the readers.
Yeah. And 2 other things that I've been bringing in as well is that I have a really nice Go Fish card game that we'll have in the show notes where it's she'll say it's a duck, right? It's a duck. So instead of saying duck, do you have a duck? You say duck. Do you have a zebra? And so we play this game where we're saying the sound over and over again, and then we're trying to match the cards. That has been a really big thing that we've been using the last about 2-3 weeks. Really helpful for her to kind of get all those sounds, because she knows the animal that's on there, but she may actually not know the phonetic sound of that letter.
Right.
But because she knows the name of the word, she knows, okay, that's the phonetic sound. And I've actually been able to teach her some more phonetic sounds. We're only about halfway through the alphabet right now based on the lessons that we've been doing. But she's actually been able to layer in a bunch of other sounds because we've been playing this great Go Fish game. And also we're using these stamp tiles where, if you've been paying attention in the past few episodes, we talked a lot about the storytelling where she's writing stories. She's been using the stamps to like start a word with the stamp letter that she knows that she's been learning in the last few days. So we'll be writing a story. I'll leave that first letter off. She's got to get the stamp that puts that letter there. So that's another little thing I've been doing as well. So all these things I'm layering on top of the actual lesson plan of the curriculum. And I've had to do this just to manage her learning style, that she needs to have a lot of different creativity coming at her, a lot of different avenues to learn the same thing before she actually can progress through the mastery of the program. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of talking at length of how I've been managing the program. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of the program. So the cost of the program is about $80 to about $135 for level 4, I think it goes up to.
Right. 80 is for the pre-reading, and then up to 135 for level 4, which would be roughly 4th grade reading level. And then there's an interactive kit, which has these little letter tiles and some separate divider cards and a couple of things in it. So that's anywhere from 22 to 44, depending on if you go with the deluxe. We went with the regular kit, and it's fine. The deluxe has an extra box and then a couple things, and we didn't feel we needed that, so we didn't. One thing about this curriculum is you can teach multiple children with the same materials. The only thing you have to get new is the student packet if you have a second learner. So that student packet includes the workbook and a whole extra set of cards, because these cards are the letters or the sounds that you've learned or the words. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have your own file box with what they've mastered and what they still need to work on. So each learner would need one of those. But the student packets are anywhere from $25 to $54 depending on the level. So not really too bad. If you're going to use this curriculum with a successive learner, like we will be, so we would use this curriculum with our younger, all I'd have to get is a new workbook. I wouldn't even have to get a whole new set of cards, which is really terrific.
Now, they also have a spelling curriculum as well. Maybe we'll jump to that just for a few minutes. What is that?
So yeah, they have a complimentary spelling curriculum called All About Spelling. So that's levels 1 through 7. Level 1 of All About Spelling corresponds to level 2 of All About Reading. So this is one thing that I like, that if we want to lace in spelling, it's already going to go in a style that our children are going to be familiar with. So that's really nice. The price is really good, $30 to $40 depending on the level. And then again, you have the interactive kit with the letter tiles for anywhere from $23 to $45 depending on if you want the basic or the deluxe kit. So really affordable for the spelling, and it being in the same structure as All About Reading, I think is nice if you're going to be pulling in a spelling curriculum.
Okay, so we've been talking about a lot of curriculums in the last few episodes, and obviously we're going to talk about the pros and cons and being neutral. And every curriculum has its pros and cons, and a lot of those pros and cons are specific to the learner or to our family. So, listen to
your mileage may vary.
Yeah, listen to what we're saying, understand what your learner is, and maybe make a decision based on that. The first thing that, the pros that we want to talk about is that it is actually a good reading program. I do like the curriculum. It's very clear. The bookwork is the book design, the layout, the lessons are very helpful. They have nice prompts that you can use to, use when you're teaching whatever to your learner. They're very helpful. It's very, laid out in a very nice way. The cards are very durable. I've actually been surprised at how long the cards have lasted. I wish some of the activities would last as long as the cards.
Maybe you need to laminate those.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely break out the laminator on some of those.
Yeah.
But the cards have been very nice. The word cards where, she's learning how to sound out these words. Very nice, and keeping them in the box, I think, has, prolonged their life, greatly.
Yeah, they're done on nice heavy cardstock.
Yeah, it's on nice heavy cardstock. Also, the lessons, the directions I really like. Sometimes they go into depth about each little aspect, and they kind of have an aside for the teacher, the mentor, and whoever's teaching the program. That has been really helpful. Kind of, they have this kind of like margin area where they give you some additional information. And that's been helpful to kind of like go back. From the standpoint of a curriculum, it's very good. For us, I don't know if it's to the point where I would tell somebody to go out and buy it. So I want to talk a little bit about the cons.
Yeah, I think it's difficult just where our learners at and some of the things. I don't know We were talking about this before the show. I don't know that there's a reading curriculum that we would say is a perfect fit for our daughter at this moment, for a reader who really wants to read but might not be exactly ready to read. So this is, take some of it with a grain of salt.
Exactly. Yeah. I really don't think there's anything that I've had to build the thing that I know would work for her. And she's,
right.
There might be a lot of kids out there that this program would work wonders for. If your kid is a very good book learner.
Right. It's very highly reviewed. It's one of the best reading curriculums there are.
There's a lot of families that are, they saw great things with this. I've had to layer in a lot of extra stuff, but I think that's just due to my learner's style. And I don't want that to detract from my review here. But there are some cons. Obviously the supplemental books were a little lame.
Well, and one thing I would say too is there are 3 supplemental books. They're nice hardbound books, unlike Bob books, which are, those are going to disintegrate.
Actually, the binding of the book, it feels like it's a textbook from
right.
college.
They're really
it's
nice.
Amazing.
And we are only in the first. We are in the earlier stories, so I'm sure they get much better. The early stories are not all that great, but she doesn't know all that many letters. So,
well, also you don't do that many stories here in the first few lessons. So she kind of mastered that first story, kind of memorized it. So
that's one of the problems too, I think, is there's only this curriculum is depending on the fact that you're going to do one lesson and go through it once or maybe twice, but not that you're going to have to continue going over this ground so many times. So for those couple of letters she's learned, there's only one story in the book that she can read. So she just has to read that same story over and over, which is why we've pulled back in the Bob books as much as they are also very lame. We pulled those back in because it just gives some more variety to the stories that she could read.
Mm-hmm. Also, they have these little activities that are part of the lesson that you tear out from the activity book. They don't last very long because they're just printed on normal paper stock. Just,
right.
You're just cutting things out of paper. You do it the first time and then maybe the second time, and that's all the mileage I get out of them. I wish they had a little bit better games that were incorporated in that, but maybe they didn't think that the learner at this age would be playing games. And since we're a game schooling family, I've kind of leveraged some of that elsewhere. So maybe that's not necessarily a con, but more of like something that's unique to our family.
Right.
Then there's a bunch of things that I'm kind of neutral on. And again, I think these things are more in tune with our learner as opposed to some general criticism of the curriculum. But I have been struggling with blending sounds. Now, I've read this section and I've read the appendices on how to do that. And I've done those methods with her on how to blend sounds. And it's been a struggle. And I don't know if this is the common problem that most kids run into, but it does feel like this is the big problem that I've seen other people complain about this. I really wish they would have had some more activities or more options or more different things to do that help teach the child how to blend those sounds. This has been a big sticking point. I can get my learner through the first 2 letters, but that third letter and keeping her focus and her eyes kind of drift up and then she starts guessing. I wish they would have something that's a little bit more exciting, a little bit more, dynamic to help her get through that. Or help me teach her that, or maybe give me some ideas. Maybe an appendix on, if you're having trouble with this problem, here's some great things you can do, and just list them out. Right? I've found I've had to go out to like the YouTube channels and find other things, or find print and plays and see how other people have approached this problem. And I really wish they had put some of these, sticking point work-throughs in the book that they just didn't do, and that's something I wish that was in there. Another thing that I wish was a little bit more exciting in some parts. I know it's reading, so it can only be so exciting, but I described a little bit earlier a lot of the things I've done that kind of like spruce it up to make it a little bit more exciting. A lot of the kinesthetic stuff, a lot of the different methodologies on, keeping it short and sweet and exciting, and maybe flipping learner with teacher type of stuff. Those things have been really exciting to my learner. I would have hoped that maybe this curriculum would have maybe helped you with some of that, maybe giving you a little bit more of that.
Some games to play,
some different ideas to approach things. I just always wish they would help you a little bit more. So I felt a little bit out alone doing it. So I've had to go out and do a lot of that homework on myself. I was hoping that this curriculum would do something different than the problems that I ran into with How to Teach Your Kid in 100 Lessons, the book. But I ran into the exact same problems, which was focus attention, commitment, staying focused on reading the letters, losing focus from the learner. And I've run into the exact same problems that I had before. So it kind of feels like, well, that book was only $20. This was about 100 something. So maybe I should have just gone back to that book. And we were kind of talking about this before.
Yeah, that book was super dry though, and there weren't any stories involved in that book. You had to supplement that with stories. There was no
very bare bones,
letter tiles. We were talking about this. Okay, so that book was really affordable, but by the time you go out and you get magnetic letter tiles and you get cards for the different things, I mean, it's a lot easier with this program to keep an eye on what she knows and doesn't know, because you have everything on these cards and there's tabs for your card box that say what they've mastered, what they're working on, and all that stuff. So It's like, sure, you could hack it together from that book, but there is something nice about having the system all in place, and then you can add these extra things that you've done. But I think that overall, I don't know how much money you're saving, and there is a cost to having to organize all of it. So I don't know.
Well, and also, I know it now, like it's 2020 hindsight, right? Yeah, I could go probably assemble a reading curriculum that would do almost the same thing as this would do for about $80 to $100, but I would still kind of be lost in the structure, and this kind of gives you that nice structure. So I've enjoyed the fact that I can say, okay, we're focusing on lesson 4 this next 2 weeks, and that's all I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to take all these tools in my little Batman utility belt and I'm going to go and start using them, right? And I don't have to worry as much, because I do have this structure behind. If I was just kind of ad hocing, unit studying it all the way, I feel probably kind of lost a little bit. I wouldn't know if I'm progressing, or I wouldn't know if I'm doing, I'm missing something. I'd be short on words. And so I do trust the fact that they have done all this work behind the scenes, giving me all the right words I need, starting with these certain letters, progressing to these next letters. That has been really nice. So I'm kind of like on the fence. I was saying it earlier. I'm on the fence whether or not I like it or whether I don't, because I am kind of an unschooling first type of mentality with the way I like things. But I have leaned on the structure when I have run into problems to say, okay, here's my my cane that I can rest on while I'm figuring out how to solve the problem that I'm running into with teaching her how to read this word or that word.
I think that we had a member of our Facebook group earlier mention that she really relied on YouTube reviews. She followed a similar path as we covered in the first episode of this series, and she spent a lot of time on Kathy Duffy reviews. And in the end, she ended up going to YouTube, and that really helped her. I think that something like YouTube would be helpful in this case if you're thinking about this for your reader. Really, this one and Logic of English are the two big secular reading programs. So if you're looking at either one of those, some of those in-depth YouTube reviews where you can see it and you're listening to what we're saying, but when you can actually see the structure and think about your learner, I think it can only be so exciting at this early stage, because there's just not a lot to work with. You got to get those building blocks there, but I think that could be helpful for folks.
But, in our late night vent sessions on the couch, where, you have to talk me down off the ledge. It does feel like with her, with the 4-year-old, almost 5, that she is ready. It's like a dam, and I'm pulling the bricks out, and all of a sudden it's going to explode. And I honestly, hopefully in the next 20 podcasts, I'll come back and say, yep, the dam got pulled and she is reading like crazy right now. It does feel like that. Like
we're on the precipice. I really feel like.
Yeah, she has this huge potential that's stuck up there, and all I got to do is unstuck it. She's got like a little big beaver dam holding all this stuff back, and she just wants to rush forward and go do all these things. I just got to give her the tools to get through doing these type of things. We saw these things with a lot of her other, like with colors. Right, we saw the same thing. Oh my
gosh, our child was like the only child in preschool that just could not get her colors. It was like a mental block. We thought, well, maybe she's colorblind, or maybe she got some other issues. We were really a little concerned.
And I thought maybe she might be colorblind.
She could count and do all these other things, but colors was just like nothing. And at some point, it clicked for her. And now it's like, she can name all the different shades of the crayons. So this is going to be something similar where we're having a block, and we know she wants to get through it. We know how badly she wants to be able to read, And, she laments that she can't read right now and she wishes she could. She stays up every night after we put her to bed and she reads her picture books. That's how into it is. She wakes up in the morning and she doesn't get up right away because she's reading. She goes to nap. When she wakes up from nap, she'll catch her reading. She won't even come downstairs when she finishes. This is how into it she is. And she's frustrated too that she can't read. So it's so great that you are finding ways to connect the dots for her, because it's just helping her achieve that goal for herself.
And I'm sure we're going to be going through similar challenges. As she grows older, think about writing essays or, doing complex calculus or something of that nature. This is the first time, outside of these curriculums, a lot of these curriculums, you're just reading books.
It's fun. You're doing art.
We went on a nature walk. We
doing
talked
a science experiment and showing her. A lot of it is you giving her an experience, right? Not a lot of, you look at Blossom and Root or even Torchlight, there's not a lot of work required. Other than her doing the art part and that's all creative and fun, and there's no real right answer to that.
She's learning a skill there, but
but there's no right answer, right? It's not like, paint this, paint with these colors.
That's a great way to put it. There's no right answer.
This is wrong. It's not that way, but with reading,
there's a right answer.
There's a right answer. And so this has been the first thing I think that's really challenged her this way.
And this is the first time where instead of being her friend, I'm having to be her mentor to help guide her through a very dark learning period. And, with the metaphor of the flashlight out ahead, and we're just walking together holding our hands, and we don't know when we're going to get through this, but it's, we will. And, I have,
she's doing well.
Okay. Without going too gross, but, we had this question with the potty training, right? And, we had the late night vent sessions like, oh, this kid's never going to potty train. Yeah. And I had my buddy, we were out on the golf course, and I said, I can't get this kid to do it.
To have the desire to do it.
He goes,
herself, yeah.
He goes, Matt, I don't know of a college kid, 18-year-old going off to college who isn't potty trained. He goes, it's going to happen.
Right.
Don't
just
worry
relax
about
it.
And, it was kind of a silly analogy, but my goodness, like I took it to heart and I said, she will figure it out. And eventually she does. And it just clicks. And I have a feeling reading's going to be the same way, that I just got to keep at it, stay positive, don't get down, don't let her lose interest.
Yeah, keep it fun for her so that she doesn't feel that it's a chore. The last thing we want to do is squash any kind of love of reading. We're just trying to help her get to the point she wants to be at.
Yeah. So this is a long review of this curriculum. I don't want to say I don't recommend this curriculum. I'm on the fence. I really encourage you to, listen to the review, listen to what we've been having challenges with, and understand that this may not be what your learner will go through.
I think that this should be maybe one that we do a follow-up podcast on, because I think you're in like lesson.
I'm a few lessons in.
You're a few lessons in, and I think it would be great to do a follow-up when we finish this and see how you feel.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, but
you're not very far through it. I think it would be great to do a retrospective and see where we're at now and the techniques that you're using. By the time we've reached the end, did you have to continue those techniques? Did this program really pan out? I think it's still maybe a little bit soon to call on this. We wanted to talk about it as everyone's looking for curriculum right now before the fall. But maybe it's for us personally, maybe it's a little bit too soon to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
I agree. Let's end on a positive note on what we're into this week.
Yeah, we have been, as a family, all about World's Toughest Race, Eco Challenge Fiji on Amazon. And this, on Amazon Prime, this has been kind of interesting because it's...
Well, we are always struggling for things that we can watch.
The whole family can watch. My goodness.
The whole family can watch.
It's so hard to find programming that isn't exclusively for kids or exclusively for adults. I feel like whatever happened to the family movie? They made a bunch of these in the 90s, and we keep going back to movies that we used to watch then because they don't seem to make them now. If they make them, they're really, really lame.
Where are the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Or...
Yeah, all these movies, right? It's really hard to find something. So I saw this come up and I remembered Eco Challenge. I think the last one, they haven't done it for maybe 20 years. So it's a 8-day, I think, grueling race with teams of 4 people. And they're from all over the world. This one takes place in Fiji. It's hosted by Bear Grylls, who's, your survivalist extraordinaire British guy who's such a cheerleader and so nice.
He's a very nice guy. He seems like a nice guy.
He does. He seems really nice.
The anti-Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. What I think is really great about this is it's showing our kids, and I know that our oldest is taking this in, these people have been through a lot. And okay, they've gone through the ocean leg, and then they've done biking, and now they're river rafting, and they've been climbing up a waterfall and going through frigid waters, and they never give up. And
they're hurt,
keep persevering.
They're doing these interviews, and they might be crying because they've been, they're going through this really dark moment, but then they pick themselves up and they keep going. It's such a great kind of moral learning for her.
So much teamwork. It's really terrific. She enjoys it. I mean, it's got I think it's, as far as reality television goes, not super big on the pump up the drama thing. There's a bit of it, but I think mostly it's about the challenge that these people go through. They're good teammates to one another. There's not like a lot of...
There's no bickering or fighting.
Yeah, all that reality show drama.
They try to keep it really positive. There's a little bit of like tension and drama, like, they're out at night, what are they going to do?
Yeah, a little bit.
They do play that up a little bit, like in the intro and the outro, they play that up. But during the meat of the show, it's all very like, let's check in on this team, let's check in on that team. What are they going through? And it's great because our learner can ask questions about, hey, what are they doing? Oh, that's stand-up kayaking, or what's a billy, right? Yeah, it's made out of bamboo.
Bamboo rafts, and they were having the locals were helping them. So it's neat. It's got a cultural aspect.
Well, and all the teams are from all different places of the world, so she's seeing different types of people. They have a lot of times they're speaking different languages. Like today was a lot about the Spanish team.
Right, we're having to read the subtitles to her so that she knows. So it's great for exposure. It's great for sports because honestly, we should have been watching the Olympics right now, and we can't. So we're an Olympics loving family here. We love sports. So this is something that's for that. I think it says maybe TV 7+. We haven't encountered any bad language or anything.
I think whenever they've had a bad word, they've bleeped it out. Or
I don't know that there's even been one.
Yeah, well, there have been, and I think they make it silent. I've caught it a few times.
Okay, because I haven't noticed it.
Yeah, so there's no language we haven't seen. There hasn't been a lot of like injuries. There's been a couple scrapes and bruises.
Yeah, but it hasn't been too bad. I think we're like 3/4 of the way through it so far. It's something that we've been watching
just
in
after
the
dinner
evenings,
together,
and it's been something that's been fun for our family, and it's really hard to find good family entertainment that's new these days. So we wanted to recommend it.
Well, and also just as a second recommendation, if you do like this type of stuff, there is one on Netflix, which is Bear Grylls You vs. Wild. And
that's really fun.
We watched this one, I think, last year. Yeah. And it's really fun because it's a choose your adventure. So Bear will be dropped into a certain, let's say up in the mountains, and he has an objective that he has to get to this place. And he's making different moves, and you have to help him make decisions. And so you choose, does Bear Grylls eat that really nasty mushroom, or does he eat the bark on the tree? And sometimes you kill Bear Grylls.
We've killed Bear Grylls a lot.
Well, and what was fun was I let my learner make the decision.
Right, that was really fun.
And she was so excited. I said, okay, do you want Bear to eat those tadpoles in that really murky water? She goes, yeah, let's have him eat that. And eventually she realized that, she's not like hurting Bear. He always got medevaced because he got sick or something like that.
Yeah, it was all his, him dying or something was, he would basically eat the mushrooms, he said, and now if I'd eaten those, I would have died or whatever. So it opened up great opportunities for you to have conversations too about
nature and
what was the right the right answer and why potentially. There was a few of them that were like, oh, that could have gone either way.
Yeah, like there were a few that we didn't really know.
Do I rappel off this cliff when I don't have a good foothold, or do I take on a mountain lion? You were like, I don't know. These are both bad options.
It sounds like you're in a bad situation, bro.
Right. So, but it was definitely a fun show. I don't think there were too many episodes, but that was on Netflix.
Yeah, so if you like kind of the wilderness thing, so maybe check it out. It's either on Amazon Prime if you have an Amazon Prime account, or if you have Netflix, there's some nice...
there's 2 different shows you can look at, and we'll put links to both of them in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook, and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!
To pump you up.
We're going to pump you up. Ariel, listen to me. What is your kinder program? I need it.
You do a terrible Schwarzenegger.